Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can see me and hear me. My name is Julian Lamb. I'm an associate professor here in the Department of English. Those of you who have been watching some of our videos on YouTube will be no doubt quite familiar with my face, probably far too familiar than you would ever want to be. I appear quite prominently on our YouTube channel in various videos because I am the undergraduate admissions coordinator. One of the things that we're trying to do as a department and indeed as a faculty is to increase our online presence as much as possible to give you an idea of what it might be like to be a student at CUHK and indeed a student in the Department of English. This is a very strange admissions process for a whole variety of reasons for us, and I can't imagine how strange it must be for you. This is a big decision that you're making, and I want to affirm that as undergraduate admissions coordinator in English, that you can email me whenever you want if you have any questions. Don't worry if you think that it's a stupid question. Very often the questions that students think are stupid are the very best questions. So please feel free to email me. Hi, Angela. Yes, I think I remember Angela from a previous talk. Poor people are getting sick of the sight of me, I'm sure. But please do email me if you have any questions. And fundamentally, I'm here to help, right? Of course, I would love for you all to apply to be English majors, but my number one aim is to give you information, right? It's not to persuade you. I also did want to mention that we have 3 mini lectures coming up on our YouTube channel this week. So I gave a mini lecture last week entitled "Is Romeo Stupid?" You can find the video of that on our channel. On Thursday, Professor Ron Darwin will be presenting a talk which asks a question. And the question is TikTok tinkering with my brain? What a great question. Professor Darwin is an expert on digital linguistics. And so the effect of online communication on language is something that he is very interested in. On Friday morning, Professor Michael O'Sullivan at 11 o'clock will be giving an introduction to one of his and one of our most popular courses called Superheroes in Graphic Novels, Comics, and Film. One of the things that Professor O'Sullivan is very interested in is this recent craze for superheroes, Marvel and DC. And one of the things that he's interested in is, well, what exactly are superheroes? And whence this sudden popularity in the superhero genre? And on Friday afternoon, Professor Juk-Yung Jung will be asking the question, and I think it's a fascinating question: can we predict our English learning ability from our IQ, MBIT, blood type, or zodiac? I'd never thought of that question. Can I predict my language learning ability from my zodiac? Well, if you want to know the answer to that question, Professor Jung will be speaking 2:30 on Friday. Now, the times and days of these talks are on our YouTube channel. They're also on our website. They're also on our Facebook page. And I would encourage you, if you want to get a sense of what it's like to be in an English lecture, then do go to one of these mini lectures. They will be very accessible, very engaging. What am I going to do in this lecture? Well, substantially, I'm going to cover things that I did not cover in that short video called UG Admissions Talk. So in some sense, this talk dovetails with that. Whatever I didn't say in that, I have a chance to say here. Normally also, in our interviews, candidates have an opportunity to ask professors questions. Now, all of our interviews, obviously, this year will be conducted online. My experience with online interviews is that there is time is always short for some reason in online interviews. Perhaps it takes a longer amount of time to communicate online. I should think that it does, than in person. And so time is always pressed in online interviews. And we might not have as much time as we would like in interviews for you to ask us questions. So what I want to do over the next 50 minutes or so is to answer some of the frequently asked questions in interviews, okay? There is a wealth of information, both on the CUHK website and indeed on our English department website. I don't know about you, but sometimes, it's both a positive and a negative to have websites with lots of information on them. On the one hand, you know the information is there. On the one hand, you know the answer to your question is somewhere there, but there is so much information that, well, where do you find the answer? One of the things that I want to do is I want to give you links to places on our department website or indeed on the CUHK website where you might get fuller answers to the sorts of questions that I'm asking. And what I'm having to do is I'm having to cut and paste from a sort of a Word document at the side of my screen, and I'll put those links in the chat as I've done for the English department website. If you have any questions, feel free to write those questions in the chat, and I'll try to address them. As I said, you can always email me. Substantially, there are 6 questions that I'm going to answer. 6 of the most commonly asked questions, and they are these. First semester, first year, what can I expect? Which I always think is a fair enough question. What am I going to encounter when I first enter your department? 2, are there exchange opportunities? 3, what is the World in English Oxford Summer Programme? 4, are there opportunities for internships? 5, what is the Andrew Parkin Drama Cup? 6, why essays? Why essays? Now, that 6th question might sound a little ambiguous to you at the moment. All will be revealed when I come to question 6. Okay, question 1, first semester, first year, what can I expect? Well, there is a wealth of information, as you would be aware, on our website about the sort of courses that we offer. Now, the relevant 2 links are these. The first is a link to course descriptions. Now, if you go to that link, you will see a list of all of our courses. And if you click on one of those courses, there will be a little box that drops down, and in that box will be a short paragraph description of that particular course. Now, if you want more information about a particular course, you can go to this link. This is a link to the course outlines. Now, course outlines are the outlines that we as professors give to the students at the beginning of semester so that the students know what they will have to read, what they will have to do, the topics that will be covered and when, and so on. So the course outlines will give you an extremely detailed understanding of what is offered in each course. But what about in first year? What about in first semester, first year? What will you encounter? You will more than likely encounter 3 courses. Introduction to Literature, Introduction to English Linguistics, and Communications for English Majors 1. Let me talk about these courses. What will they do? Each of these courses will give you the tools and the terminology and the techniques with which to analyze both literary texts and the English language. They will also give you strategies, methods of articulating your thoughts, your ideas, your interpretations in clear, persuasive English. These courses attempt, broadly speaking, to strike a balance between, on the one hand, gently introducing you to these new disciplines, and even if you have studied literature before, literature at university is more intense, it's more in-depth, and it's substantially a new discipline. These courses aim to give students reassurance in these new disciplines, but they will also allow students to, as it were, spread their wings a little bit, to explore, to do, if they want, a little bit of individual research, and indeed to use their own initiative, and perhaps most importantly, to think for themselves. So on the one hand, assurance, on the other hand, exploration. Let me talk specifically about these three courses. Firstly, Introduction to Literature. One of the questions that I often get is, what will we read and how much? How much preparation will be involved? Well, if you go to that course outlines website and you eventually look up Introduction to Literature or Linguistics or SANG, Communications for English Majors, you will get a very good idea of what you will need to read. But for Introduction to Literature, broadly, you will be reading prose fiction, poetry, and drama. Initially, the reading will be extremely light. You might only have to read one short story or a couple of poems each week. As the semester progresses, you will have to read each week a little bit more. Now, the reason why the reading load increases a little bit is, firstly, because as students become a little bit better at managing their time, managing their various commitments, they can take on a little bit more preparation, such that towards the end of this course, you will be reading one short play and one full-length play. On average, the reading will be about 10 to 20 pages a week, which isn't a huge amount. Assessment. What will the assessment be? One of the things that we aim to do in these courses is to offer you various forms of assessment. So, participation. We always like students to participate in class, to ask questions, to give answers, to make comments, to articulate their own views. And participation will be 10%. There will be a presentation that each student has to give, and that will also be 10%. There will be a series of quizzes and a response paper during the semester, and they will comprise 40%. And there will be a final essay, a final term paper, and that will also be 40%. Now, yes, that final essay is the heaviest weighted item. Nevertheless, there are a variety of items, a variety of assessment types that students will have to complete. Now, I'll talk about essay writing in a moment. Essay writing is a very important component in our assessment in each course. I'll talk about in a moment about why that is the case. But one of the things that we're careful not to do is to ask you to write lots and lots of essays in your first semester, because we want to have the opportunity to teach you to write a good, clear, persuasive essay before essays really become an important part of your assessment. A question that I very often get is, I have not studied literature before, am I at a disadvantage? And the answer is no. No. Some of our most successful students who go on to do PhDs in Europe and the UK and the US in literary study did not take literature at high school. In some sense, Introduction to Literature brings students up to speed. It gives them the reassurance, and it also gives them the prompt to explore by themselves. I also think that English literary study at university is at a level and a depth and intensity which is greater than that at high school. In some sense, it's a different ballgame at university. Introduction to English Linguistics. What can you expect in this course? Reading will substantially come from a textbook. You'll need to read 1 or 2 chapters each week. These chapters range from around about 10 to 12 pages. So between 10 and maybe 24 pages a week of reading. Each chapter will introduce you to a particular theme or focus of applied English linguistic study. For instance, 1 week you'll learn phonetics, the sounds of language, the sounds of English, and how to classify them. Another week you might learn about morphology. Morphology is the study of word formation. How is it that words come to be the way they are? Another week you might study psycholinguistics or neurolinguistics. What is the relationship between language and the brain? How do our brains process language? Fascinating stuff. Assessment in Introduction to English Linguistics is also quite varied. Participation, 10%. Quizzes during the semester, 20%. There will be an essay during the term, and that will be 30%. And there will be an end of semester exam, which will be a mixture of short answer and slightly longer answer questions, and that will be 30%. Question that I often get about applied English linguistics is studying English linguistics anything like studying English at secondary school? And each time I'm asked that, I reply emphatically, no, exclamation mark. In fact, one of the aims of Introduction to English Linguistics is to show you the vast number of ways in which it is different from studying English at secondary school. Now, this is something that I touched on in that UG admissions talk video. And so if you want to learn a little bit more about this, then I would commend that video to you. One way of thinking about the difference is to say that in secondary school, one of the emphases is proficiency. It is correctness. How can one speak and write English proficiently, fluently, but also correctly? Applied English linguistics has a completely different emphasis. Applied English linguistics considers English as a used entity, something that is used by ordinary people like you and I every day, and it asks a very profound question. Why is it that English is used in that way? That is a completely different emphasis to proficiency and correctness. Now, I hasten to add that studying applied English linguistics, and indeed studying literary texts for that matter, will improve your English proficiency and correctness. But that is not the specific aim. Communications for English Majors 1. We like to shorten that to SENG, C-E-N-G. Reading for this course will substantially be done through handouts and also extracts from larger texts. In this course, students will have to complete several short written tasks, including a personal essay and also a literary analysis paper. Now, in my view, one of the profound strengths of the SENG course is that the classes are very small. Most often, you will be in classes of around about 12 or 15 at the most. In order to teach this course, we employ recent graduates from several top American universities, mostly from Yale University. The advantage of that and the advantage of these small classes is that you will have plenty of opportunity for one-to-one instruction on how to write a persuasive essay, on how to write clear, articulate English prose. The best way to learn writing is through one-to-one instruction. It's all very well for someone like me to stand at the front of a lecture room saying, these are the rules of good writing. But you don't learn good writing by rules. You learn good writing as much as anything by learning how to apply those rules. And that can really only be taught in a one-to-one situation. And we are able to provide that in this Communication for English Majors course. You will also have to complete several spoken tasks, tasks through which you will acquire skills in formal and informal speech, such as presentations, specifically persuasive presentations to a small audience. You will also, in these presentations, receive very close, once again, one-to-one feedback from your tutors and also your peers. There will also, this coming year in Communications for English Majors, there will be a specific emphasis put on digital literacy. How can you communicate powerfully, effectively, clearly, persuasively through online digital media? And we think that those are very important skills to have going forward. Another question that I often get from admissions candidates is there anything I can do to prepare for university, specifically for life as an English major? And I'm always struck by this question, largely because it is asked by a candidate who has just gone through the very stressful DSE examination process, as you all have gone through. They've barely taken breath from that very anxious process, and they're already thinking, well, what next? How can I prepare for the next step? And the answer that I always give, and this might not be the answer that they want to hear or that you want to hear, but the answer that I always give is, for goodness sake, rest. Take a break for a bit. You've gone through one heck of a stressful, probably anxious experience. Take a break. Reacquaint yourself with life. Reacquaint yourself with friends. Reacquaint yourself with fun stuff. And perhaps most importantly, reacquaint yourself with a healthy way of living. One of the things that I think it's very important to keep in mind, and that I'm reminding my students, and indeed I sometimes need to remind myself, is that the final product of an English major is not essays or quizzes or exams or even marks. The final product of an English major is you. That's what we're working on, as it were, you. That's what we're seeking to build. And in order for us all to produce a good you at the end of your major, you need to look after yourself. Now, the last thing I want to do is to sound like your parent, but allow me briefly to sound like your parent. This is something that I myself have to keep in mind, but it's also something that I tell my own students. One of the ways in which you can look after yourself, one of the most profound ways you can do that, is to remember that you have a body. One of the things that education can very frequently do is that it forces us to spend so much time in our own brains that we forget that we have these. We have bodies. 3 things. Sleep. Sleep well and sleep at the right time. 2, eat well, eat healthily, and eat at the right time. 3, exercise. Exercise. Walk, run, cycle, badminton, ping pong, hike, football, whatever. Exercise. And if you're doing those things now and you get into good habits now, those habits will continue through your university life. And you'll be able to get the most out of you. And the you that comes out of the end of this English major will be the best you that you can make. Question 2 that I often get asked, and don't worry, the answers to my questions will get shorter. Exchange opportunities. Are there opportunities for exchange? Whenever I'm asked this question, I say resoundingly, yes, absolutely. So many opportunities for exchange. Exchanges are generally organized either through the university or through the individual colleges. As a general rule, any student who wants to go on exchange can go on exchange. I've even heard of students going on exchange twice. It strikes me that that's a little excessive, but they do it. And if they have good reasons, then why not? Why not? Exchanges typically stretch for a semester, and some of them go over the summer break. Where can you go on exchange? Well, the university has exchange relationships with a vast number of different universities all over the world. The link that I've just shared with you is a link at the website of the Office of Academic Links. And it's through them that the university substantially arranges its exchange. The link that I've shared you outlines all of the steps that you will need to complete in order to apply for exchange. And also through that link, you will be able to access the long list of universities that you will be able to go to. And these universities exist not simply in perhaps the obvious places like the US and the UK and Canada and Australia and Europe, and Japan and Korea, but even apparently Ukraine. I have heard of a student who went on exchange in the Ukraine. I'm not sure specifically what drew them to the Ukraine. Perhaps they wanted to learn Russian, a very good reason to go to the Ukraine, but you can even go to the Ukraine. So there you are. There you are. One thing that if you go on exchange, you will have to keep in mind is credit. Credit. And the question, to what extent can you use the credits that you have earned in the courses on exchange for your CUHK degree, for your English major? Now, you will know before you go and before you choose courses on your exchange whether or not they can be counted. As a general rule, there is no theoretical reason why an English major cannot count credits they complete overseas on exchange if those courses are courses in linguistics or literature. Okay, so the vast majority of students take courses that can be credited. So those are exchange opportunities. Next question. What is the World in English Oxford Summer Programme? Well, this is an enormously exciting opportunity, available only, I should add, to English majors. Obviously, this is an opportunity that happens over summer, and sadly, this year, our students have not been able to take advantage of this opportunity for obvious reasons, but we fully anticipate, COVID-19 notwithstanding, that we will be able to offer this next year. What exactly is it? 15 to 20 students will be selected by a panel of professors and instructors, and they will go to St Hilda's College in Oxford, where they will spend 3 weeks attending classes Classes will typically be around about 4 hours of face-to-face teaching a day, 5 days a week. The teaching will substantially be about literature or applied linguistics. Evenings, afternoons, weekends will be spent traveling to important cultural sites or going to the theatre. It strikes me as a fascinating, wonderful way of spending 3 weeks. I should also add that in those 3 weeks, there will be plenty of time for free time, plenty of time essentially for you to explore by yourselves. Return airfare, accommodation, tuition fees are heavily subsidized by our department. Typically, students remain in the UK after their 3 weeks of classes have finished. And they figure, well, we're in the UK, we have half the summer vacation still in front of us. Let's spend several weeks in Europe. And they do. And they have a great time. And it's an eye-opening and it's a mind-opening experience for our students, as you can imagine it would be. More information about the Oxford Summer Programme can be found here. Also at that link, you will see lots of photos of some very happy students. Fourth question that I often get: are there any opportunities for internships? Yes, there are many opportunities. For the most part, internships are organized either through the university or through the colleges. Now, let me speak firstly about the university. So the university has what it calls a global internship program, and I've sent you the link to it right there. Now, this program has links to all sorts of internships all over the world. It's quite a staggering list of internship opportunities. More broadly, the website from which that link comes is the Career Planning and Development Center. And that is a very good place to go to if you want any advice on career planning, on what you might do after you graduate as an English major. There is a wealth of information on that website, and I commend it to you. Additionally, as I mentioned, the specific colleges also offer internship opportunities. Now, if you want to know what the specific colleges offer, my advice would be to go to the specific college websites, and you will be able to find a link to the internship opportunities that they offer. Now, the English department has a growing list of internship opportunities, internship links that we specifically have to various organizations around Hong Kong. Each year, we publish a list of internship opportunities and also summer recruitment opportunities on our website. And the link that I've given you is to the 2019 list. It will give you some idea of the opportunities available. What I also wanted to do briefly is to share the experience, the internship experience of two of our students, Charmaine and Lorraine. Now, one of the reasons why I'm sharing Charmaine and Lorraine's experience is because they applied for their internships in quite different ways. In fact, a lot of our students apply through various ways and means to their internships. Some apply through the Global Internship Program, some apply through colleges, some apply through an external agent, some apply through the links the department has, some apply through their own initiative. There are so many different ways in which these opportunities can be accessed. There is no sort of one-size-fits-all model. Let me first talk about Charmaine's experience. Charmaine was an intern at the Tai Kwun Center for Heritage and Arts. How did Charmaine learn of this opportunity? Well, she learnt about it from her academic advisor. So if you come into our department, you will each be assigned a professor, and that professor will be your academic advisor for the time of your English major. Many of the professors in the department have links and have working relationships with various cultural institutions in Hong Kong. And Charmaine's professor knew of internships that were offered by Tai Kwun and suggested that she applied. And she did, and she got it. What did Charmaine do at Tai Kwun? She showed visitors round the site. She also had to explain modern art to people who did not know about modern art. And those are more or less Charmaine's own words. No easy task if you know anything about modern art. One of the things, though, that Charmaine found very useful in this activity was the fact that as an English major, she was very accustomed to explaining difficult works of art, complex works of art, obscure works of art in a way that's clear and accessible. In fact, Tai Kwun specifically sought Charmaine out to do this job. What was the outcome for Charmaine? Well, the outcome for Charmaine is that she left the internship not only with friends and a network, but she also left the internship with advice as to how she might proceed in this kind of career should she choose it. Let me briefly talk about Lorraine's experience. Lorraine applied to an internship with Shakespeare for All, which is an organization which we as a department have a specific relationship with. Some of you might know about Shakespeare for All and might know that one of Shakespeare for All's aims is to make Shakespeare accessible to everyone, but especially to children and to young adults. What did Lorraine do as part of her internship? Well, she was heavily involved in the rehearsal and production of Shakespeare for All's Hamlet, which I had the good fortune to see, and it was an astonishingly wonderful production. So Lorraine was part of the rehearsing of some pretty young kids and young adults. Lorraine was also able to see how an arts organization, how a theatre company is run behind the scenes. So she got an in-depth understanding of arts administration. And the outcome of all of this was that it has inspired Lorraine to go into theatre education and perhaps theatre administration in the future. Second last question. What is the Andrew Parkin Drama Cup? The Andrew Parkin Drama Cup is something that as a department we're quite proud of. It's a drama competition which we hold each year. Students from each of the colleges form teams and they write, they produce, and they perform their own plays in a competition. We think this is a great way, not only for students to know and to learn the rudiments of theatrical production, and drama is an important aspect of our curriculum, but it's obviously also an excellent way in which students can connect, make friends, and get to know each other. Drama is something that I teach in our department. It's also something that I do. And I know from experience that one of the best ways of getting to know someone is to be engaged in a creative process with that person. And so we think this is, for many reasons, a very enriching experience for our students. And finally, the last question that I'm going to address is, why essays? Why essays? Let me first explain what I mean by this somewhat obscure question. I recently asked several of our first years who have just come to the end of their first year. And I asked them, is there anything that you would have liked to have known about CUHK or about the English major that you know now but you did not know when you were applying for our departments. Now, most of the students that I asked said that the information that they needed was online, but there was so much information online that it was overwhelming. And in many respects, that has informed how I'm speaking to you now. And that's why I'm giving you all of those web links. I'm trying to help you to navigate through this world, this enormous richness of information. But one student actually said something a little different. And she said she didn't realize how much of a proportion of assessment would be comprised by essays. She hastened to add that she didn't mind that. It's just that she didn't know that essays would be such an important part of assessment. Now, how would I respond to that? Well, I would respond in a couple of ways. The first way I'd respond is fundamentally to agree with her. Essays do form an important component, perhaps the most important component of our assessment. I would also say that we don't rush you into writing essays. We spend first semester, first year, aiming to teach you how to write a clear, persuasive, articulate essay. There are also a variety of courses in our departments whose principal component of assessment is not an essay. So, for instance, in some applied English linguistics courses, you might have to write a report, you might have to do some field work, or you might have to complete a group task. There are obviously other courses in literary study, like drama and performance, which I teach, whose principal assessment component is not an essay. In drama, it's a theatre performance. In creative writing, it's writing poetry and short stories, or perhaps a theatre script. So there are certainly courses in which essay writing is not the principal component. And there are ways in the first semester, first year, we do teach you in very careful and assured ways how to write a good essay. But nevertheless, this student is right. Essays do comprise a very important assessment component. And it's important, and I'll use this idea to conclude on, it's important to ask why. Why is that the case? I think if we're going to ask this question, why is that the case, we should achieve some clarity as to what an essay actually is. One of the things that I tell my students is that an essay is no less than an attempt to show someone else your mind. It's an attempt to show someone else your mind. And this is not an easy thing to do sometimes, especially if the things in your mind that you're trying to show are complex and subtle and nuanced. It's an especially difficult enterprise if the things in your mind are only things that you know, your impression, your feelings, your interpretation. The ability to show someone your mind, I would argue, is one of the most important abilities you can possibly have. Think for a moment if you were unable to show anyone your mind. What sort of a life would that be? I think it'd be an awful life. You'd be stuck in your own mind, never able to make yourself understood. The rules of essay writing are not merely a pedantic list of do's and don'ts. The rules of essay writing, and indeed the very form of an essay, is like a map out of your own mind. It is a series of directions whereby you can articulate your mind in a way in which someone else would be understanding of it. Becoming skillful in the art of essay writing, and essay writing is an art. Becoming skillful in this art ultimately means finding your voice, being able to write, being able to speak clearly, logically, rationally, persuasively, and perhaps even beautifully. And if you can do that, then people will understand you. People will make an effort to understand you, and people will listen to you. And if you can use language in this world in such a way that people listen to you, then you have a voice. You will be heard. Very difficult to argue that you have a voice if no one listens to you or no one understands you. Fundamentally, in this department, we want to give students a voice. And we give them that voice by allowing them to acquire all the skills whereby they will be heard. And if they're heard, if they have a voice, they will be empowered. And that fundamentally is the end of all education, empowerment. And I think that students at the end of their time as an English major are empowered. Thanks so much, everyone. I don't want to keep you for any longer. You've been enormously patient. As I said, and I can't affirm this more, if you have any questions, if you want any help, any advice, then you have my email. I will respond. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great rest of the day. Take care.